A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Sanjay Chaturvedi, convener for the knowledge series organized by CREDAI-MCHI and in association with the Real Estate Practicing Welfare Association, a professional body practicing in real estate and very specifically in RERA. Today the subject is very burning subject, that is GST issues in real estate. We have seen it, there were so many queries, and the way we have, the moment we have announced the knowledge series, we were pouring in into the questions. There are some transaction process, there are, home buyers wants to ask, developers wants to ask, vendors wants to ask. There are so many questions which needs to be having some clarifications, and what a way that the very learned faculty which we are having today with us in the knowledge series. And I bet that in the evening, those who are sitting over here, and of course those who are right now listening on the YouTube live right now, you can always have a question, put it in the chat box. Our faculty input is going to, just after the presentation, we'll take the question answer also. This is the format of the today's knowledge series right now. To start and begin with, I would request our president of RERA Practicing Welfare Association, Ashit Shah, to just welcome a few words. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Sanjay bhai. Good evening to all. I welcome you all to this joint effort by RERA Practitioner Welfare Association and CREDAI-MCHI, that is starting of the knowledge series on various topics which are of burning issue to the developer, to the customer and to the real estate industry as a whole. Now GST was introduced in 2017, and at that point of time we felt that it would be a very simple law with two kind of taxes, CGST and SGST. But as we progressed, every now and then there are n number of notification flowing, n number of council meetings are also held, and many settled things which were, we thought that these are the settled thing, but they were become unsettled because of certain pronouncement. Today our speaker, Sri Ashit Shah, is highly qualified and expert on the GST law. He will be dealing with the GST aspect on the various legislative pronouncement. Friends, something about RERA Practitioner Welfare Association. We have floated this association last year only, and we are doing very large number of activities through webinar, seminar, and one thing to be noted that next Wednesday, 22nd June, we are having one physical panel discussion that is also again on the very burning issue, that is reviving stall project and a roadmap. So there we will have eminent faculties including RERA chairperson. So I request all of you to spread this news and come physically, because that event is physical event. So I would request all of you to spread the words about the activities which are jointly conducted by RERA Practitioner Welfare Association and CREDAI-MCHI. So with these few words, now I'll hand over to Sanjay bhai.
Thank you, Ashwin bhai. And today, MCHI CREDAI, we are having the knowledge series, the premium body for the developers and the real estate, and they are having a number of webinars and seminars in the recent past and in the past also, the oldest body. I would request Dr. Harshul Savla from the MCHI CREDAI to say a few words and welcome our audience.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. First up, grand welcome to all of you all, the ones physically present as well as the ones joining us digitally. CREDAI-MCHI today is proud to have more than 12,000 members across MMR, and it is present in 12 different units in the form of across MMR. So it's one of the largest apex body, and as an association, there is a dual focus. So not only we are working towards ease of business in terms of representing various requirements to the government, but also a responsible role as an association is taken up to build knowledge within the members and all stakeholders. One such initiative is the tie-up with the RERA Practitioners Welfare Association, which is a body of professionals as well as multi-stakeholders, and seeing the role of RERA and the way the Act is evolving, we at CREDAI-MCHI are extremely supportive towards various knowledge initiatives with RPWA. And as the president of RPWA said, we have a grand upcoming event on the 22nd around the stalled real estate projects and the roadmap to revive. The idea is how we can revive them. I would want to make a special note to thank our president, Shri Baman Irani ji, President CREDAI-MCHI and President-elect for CREDAI National for supporting this initiative and for having this association take place. And also the Honorable Secretary, Shri Dhaval Ajmera, for supporting this. With this, I would request the Secretary of RPWA to introduce our speaker, and we will, without any further delay, get into the main content of this particular event. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashit Bhai. Warm welcome to everyone. I would now introduce a person who does not need any introduction. He is himself an authority in indirect tax. I welcome your Ashit Bhai Kishore Kumar Shah. Educational qualification is, of course, BCom, FCA, DISA. His professional development activities, providing training to corporate bodies in indirect tax, has been specializing in GST, one of the contributors to reference every year published by the GST department, that is GSTPAM, contributing article monthly in magazines like Chamber of Tax Consultant, All India Federation of Tax Practitioners, and various other magazines. Visiting faculty to lot of institutes, Regional Institute of Controller General of Accounting General of India, located at Mumbai, has been awarded with Best Column Writer for the year 2016 and 17. The achievements goes on and on and on, and has also authored a lot of books. His achievements are co-authored on Technical Guide on Annual Returns, Audit Report and GST for Western India. Has co-authored book on Sabka Vikas Legacy Scheme. Has been Chairman of Law and Representation of Goods and Services Association of Maharashtra on Service Tax and GST. This list goes on, friend. And I would not take much time to introduce Mr. Ashit Shah, and I would see to it, and we all make sure that while we end this program, we take a lot from Ashit Bhai.
Thank you. Thank you, Nilesh Gala, Advocate Nilesh Gala, Secretary of our association. Now we request our guest faculty to please start his presentation. The presentation in two parts. First is presentation, then he will take the question answer. So if you are having some questions, you can write in the chat box, and those who are present over here, you can always ask after the faculty's presentation is. Sir.
Thank you. Dignitaries of both the association, MCHI, CREDAI and RERA Real Estate Association, participants who are present over here and participants who are online. A very pleasant evening to all of you. Pleasant evening because of the two reasons. Thank the association that they have invited me over here and present my views on the topic of this GST issues on real estate. Burning and hot, very true. It's very burning. those who are practicing in this law from the taxation side, they must be knowing that nothing is new in this law. Because right from the inception, whether you take it as a direct tax or indirect tax, in income tax also there is a lot of challenges which are there, how to tax the income from the project. If you take an indirect tax, the problem is there right from the Bombay Sales Tax Act, Value Added Tax, VAT, then comes service tax, and now GST. In each and every legislation, the legislation wanted to tax the construction sector, and on the business side or a taxpayer side, it was unclear whether on which value the tax needs to be discharged. Because in the construction sector, if you will see, that it involves three components. First component is the land, because without land nothing will happen. Second is the construction cost. And third one is the value inputs, which are goods which are used in constructing the real estate. Out of these three components, what is to be taxed, how it is to be taxed, and when it is to be taxed. It's a challenge every time, whether you take that BST Act, VAT Act, service tax or GST. So there is nothing new in this, but still the problem persists. But problem persists in new ways and new challenges are there, and with this we have to live. Though from the legislative perspective, I would say they have tried a lot to make it simplified so that it becomes very easier to do the business. But unfortunately, there are certain instances where this problem still persists. So now today we will try to look at into those kind of things. What are the issues which are there as the name suggests, and then we will deal with it in the question and answer session. So, since this is a real estate sector, so very importantly, builders and developers comes into the picture. Now, whenever any project has to be executed, a builder or developer can do that activity. At that point of time, the land is as I have said, is the very important factor. So the land would be held by the builder or developer, or it may have to be with the others. If it is with the builder, then the life would be much more easier. Why easier? Because land apni khud ki hai, then construct karo and then sell it. There is not much problem to that. After 1st April 2019, the law has become much relaxed. Previously, the problem before 2019, when there is a transfer of development right, how to tax it? What about the input tax credit? How to take input tax credit? How to reverse it? All those problems were there. But after 1/4/19, lot many problems have been relaxed. But when the land doesn't belong to the builder or developer, that means the development would be with the landowner or with the cooperative housing society, which we are known as a joint development agreement, or the development with the government project, which are known as a SRA project. And the whole project goes on. Now the projects are divided into two types. Which are the two types? Real estate projects and real estate residential project. Let's see this. Excuse me, can you just... Make it a big. Just give me a second. Yeah, so we were on the projects. So there are two types of project: residential real estate project and real estate project, which are known as RREP or REP. So now how to identify which are the project which falls under RREP? So it has been defined that in an REP project, if the carpet area of the commercial apartment is not more than 15% of the total carpet area or of all the apartments in residential real estate project, then in that case, that project needs to be considered as a residential real estate project. Now why this definition is important? Because If you are in an RREP project, then the rate of tax would be different, say 5% tax. At present, the existing rate of tax is 5%, though the commercial part is applicable on that. But if you doesn't fall under the RREP project, but then in that case, the rate of tax would be 18%, and after taking the land deduction, it would be 12%. So therefore, it becomes very much important to understand whether the project is RREP project or a normal REP project. So having understood this RREP and REP project, then the next one would be that what would be the scheme of taxation. I would just first of all take you to how the scheme will work, and then we will go to the issue. So under the scheme of taxation, as I have told, that from 1st day of April 2019, there is a total revamp in the taxation matter, and accordingly under the old scheme of the scheme, till 1/4/2019, one-time option has been provided to all the builders and developers that if they fill, then they can move out to the new scheme, or they can remain in the old scheme only and tax it. So old scheme means the rate of tax would be 12%, and they are eligible to take the input tax credit. In respect of a new scheme, the rate of tax in respect of residential unit would be 5%, but the input tax credit is not eligible. This is the sum and substance of the old scheme and new scheme. Now let's come to the important thing, the rate of tax. If you go to the notification number 11/2017, which is the list which provides that what is the rate of tax in respect of all kinds of supply of services. And this construction service is one of those services. Now in that rate of tax, the law has provided that this is the rate of tax. Now on that rate of tax, first, in order to apply that rate of tax, first of all, we should know what is the value of that transaction. Otherwise, where do you apply that? So in the notification, they have defined that the value of supply shall be equivalent to the total amount charged for such supply, and from that supply, we have to reduce the value of transfer of land or undivided share of land, as the case may be, and such value of transfer of land or undivided share of land in such supply shall be deemed to be the 1/3 of the total amount charged for such supply. That means from the value of total supply, you have to reduce the 1/3 value, which is an arbitrary value which has been determined by the legislature, and that you have to reduce it, and on the balance portion, you have to discharge the tax liability which has been provided in the notification. They have further said that now how you would determine the total amount charged. So where they are saying the total amount charged consists of two amounts. Number one, consideration charge for the aforesaid services, that means the construction services, and the amount charged for the transfer of land or undivided share of land, as the case may be, including by way of a lease or sublease. That means they have understood that if in a contract agreement, the transfer of value of transfer of land as well as transfer of as well as construction cost has been mentioned, then that both the value had to be clubbed together, and that would be the total amount charged, and from that total amount charged, the value of land has to be reduced. So here the litigation starts. On the one hand, the law says that on the sale of land or a transfer of land, there should not be a tax. But here indirectly, through this definition or an explanation which is provided in the notification, it says that no, the tax has to be charged on the total amount charged by the developer. So here I have given one example. The cost of land is 1 crore rupees, construction cost is 40 lakhs, so agreement value must be 1 crore 40 lakhs rupees. As you are aware that in the agreement, when you are buying the residential unit or a commercial unit, various charges are levied by the builder or developer, namely infrastructure development charges or 1 year maintenance or other recoveries. So, and that come up to be total amount charged. So this is the 1 crore 50 lakhs rupees is the total amount charged. So the GST payable, how you will work it out? So total amount charge is 1 crore 50 lakhs rupees. 1/3 value is considered to be the deemed value, so 50 lakhs rupees. So the value of construction service is 1 crore rupees. So tax has to be discharged on 1 crore rupees. Now whether this is a right way of calculating, determining the value of construction services, obviously not. Why not? Because in this 1 crore, if you will look at it up, the 1 crore rupees is the cost of land out of this 1 crore 50 lakhs rupees. So logically, if we see, only on 50 lakhs rupees, the tax needs to be payable, construction's cost, right? But here it doesn't happen. And therefore there is a, someone wanted to challenge before the court that such kind of arbitrary value which has been provided by the legislation is not a correct thing, and therefore it has to be struck down. And therefore, one Mrs. Manjula Manishbhai Bhatt has filed a writ petition before the Gujarat High Court by challenging that such kind of notification which provides the valuation mechanism is not in accordance with law, and it should be ultra viruses, because indirectly you are taxing the land. Now in this case, what has happened that she is an advocate, interestingly, and she has wanted to buy a house in Gujarat, and there a bungalow. In the bungalow, she has said that I will pay X amount towards the cost of the land and XY amount as a cost of the construction services, and therefore the builder says that I would like to levy the tax on both the component cost of land as well as the construction cost, and on that 1/3 value I will be provided, and on the balance portion I would like to levy the tax. Now, being an advocate, and on the top of that lady, she says I can't tolerate this. And therefore, she has gone before the High Court, wherein she says that such kind of provisions should be ultra viruses, and mandatory deeming fiction as provided in the notification should be struck out. Now, let's see what the court says. Observation of the court. Court has said that first of all, what we have to see the section, right? What legislation says. Legislation got the power from the Act and rules, wherein section 15 is provided. Section 15 is the valuation mechanism, which says that the value of supply shall be the actual price paid or payable. Now in this case, what should be the actual price paid or payable? That is obviously 1 crore and 50 lakhs rupees. Very good. Then what it tries to say, that rules are there which says that if you are in a position to determine the value as per section 15, then you have to take into consideration the value as per section 15. Now in this case, whether can you able to determine the value of supply or a value of service? No, because it includes the component of land cost also. Therefore, we need to travel to the rules. Section 15 says that if you cannot determine the valuation of any transaction, then you have to travel to the rules, and rule 27 to 31 you have to look at into. In that rules, rule 30 and 31 is the most important things, which says, rule 30 says, that if you cannot determine the value, then you have to consider 110% of the cost of service. So at the most, what would be my cost of service? Would be 1 crore or 50 lakhs rupees plus 10%, that would be my value of service. Or rule 31 says reasonable value, the reasonable value should be adopted. Now in the present situation, since the specific or distinct consideration has been agreed for the sale of land and construction services, deeming fiction cannot be applied, and there the Gujarat High Court has taken the reliance on the Supreme Court judgment of Gannon and Darkenly, wherein it has been held that the actual value is available. When the actual value is available, the same was to be deducted, and if the actual value is not ascertainable, then the deeming fiction can be applied. So if the deeming fiction can be applied only and if the actual value is not there, or some the valuation mechanism fails, then and then only it would be applicable. And therefore, the mandatory application of deeming fiction of 1/3 of the total agreement value towards land is ultra viruses and to the statutory provisions, and such mandatory uniform rate of deduction is discriminatory, arbitrary, and violative of Article 14 of the Constitution. This is the observation of the Gujarat High Court. Now, why it is said uniform rate of deduction? Now, what do you mean by uniform rate of deduction? It says 1/3 of the value of the total consideration. So, this is irrespective of the value and the area of the flat. Now, suppose if I have bought the value of the flat of 5 crore rupees, and Ashwin Bhai has taken the value of residential unit of 1 crore. So, in both the case, the rate of deduction is the same, 1/3 straight. So, such kind of uniform and mandatory rate of deduction is also violative to the Article 14 of the Constitution. And therefore, the ruling has came that where the value of land is clearly ascertainable or where the value of construction services can be derived with the aid of valuation of rules, such deduction can be permitted at the option of a taxable person, particularly in a case where the value of land or undivided share of land is not ascertainable. That means that now the option has been given with the taxpayer or a land builder or developer that they have to choose. If there is a specific value which has been assigned in the agreement for the land value, then they have to deduct it. If the specific land value is not available, then they can resort to the valuation rules and derive the value of land. If both the things are not available, then at the option of the developer, they can adopt to this 1/3 value of deduction. This is how it has to be found out. Now, very interestingly, the court says that this notification has to be read down and not struck down. So, very, very important to understand what do you mean by read down and struck down. Struck down means it has to be cut from the legislation, act or rules. That means then that is no more in existence. But read down means the court is giving a guidance. This is how you have to read the law. And this is a very good judgment, I would say. Those who are interested, they must have to read this judgment. So it has been read down. That means the High Court is giving a direction that this is how you have to read down. Therefore, the option is available with them. So after having this judgment, now new round of litigation will start. What is to be done? Now, since this judgment has been given by the Gujarat High Court, so many of you must be wondering whether this benefit of judgment can be taken in the state of Maharashtra. Obviously, to the best of my knowledge, any contrary ruling is not opined in the state of Maharashtra. Therefore, definitely jurisdictional court can be, decision can be very well, we can take it and take the benefit of the same. Therefore, as of today, builder, if they wanted to take the benefit of this pronouncement, they can very well take the benefit of this judgment. Now, what would be the course of action? Naturally, जिसने पैसा भर दिया वो क्या करेगा? बराबर है? तो जो भी buyer है और residential या commercial unit के उन्होंने टैक्स भर दिया है, what they can do? They can go before the court of law. Sir, please मुझे refund दे दीजिए. They have to again recalculate the tax liability and ask for the refund. Refund के लिए time limit है 2 years. So within that they have to file it. Now, whether a builder can ask for the refund? Yes, builders can ask for the refund provided the incidence of tax has not been passed on to them. But in majority of the cases, incidence of tax must have been passed to the buyers. Therefore, it is now on the court side of the buyer that they have to apply it. Now it becomes very much difficult. Buyer है, एक बंदा अकेला है, कैसे जाएगा? He may not be aware about this kind of thing. So literally it would be difficult. But of course, legally, if you ask me, they are entitled for the refund. Now, what the builder or developer will do after this judgment? So now henceforth what they will say, try to say, they will say, okay, now in the agreement what we will do, we will try to bifurcate and give in the agreement the cost of land and the construction cost. Now, whether is it possible in the same agreement, really that needs to be checked and tested, because under the RERA law, whether is it possible or not, that has to be checked. Yes, sir, possible che RERA ma? In the same agreement, I will mention it that this is the cost of land and the construction cost, and prepare an agreement. Then whether from RERA perspective, whether is it, there should not be any problem, I believe. We can. Chalo. So I think we can definitely. So now people will start doing it. So the next question would be that many times in order to reduce the tax liability, people will say that my cost of land is very high and cost of construction is low. Then whether can it be challenged before some officer that you have evaded the tax? I think that should not be the problem. Because in the same pronouncement, the respondent side has taken a same view that suppose if we give the benefit of such an actual rate of land value, then probably some mischievous people may take the benefit. But there also the court has taken a stand that nothing to worry, because the price is what? That has to be paid by or agreed by the two person, buyer and a seller. Then in that respect, one should not worry about it. So I think that should not be a problem. So now probably all the lawyers will have one more work to draft the agreement again and put it in the and check it out whether this two separate component can be put into the agreement or not. So now what builder has to do? They have to either have an option. First of all, discharge the tax liability as per the existing law, 1/3 deduction from the value. That would be the safest view. Second thing, he may take the benefit of this judgment and discharge the tax liability on actual cost of services. To my mind, it would be little bit aggressive view. We would be too for early, because definitely this would be challenged before the Supreme Court, and before it comes out, one has to be play safe, because the rate of tax is very high. Therefore, whenever a GST law has come from July 17, we always always advise that you take a safest view, because first of all, rate of tax is too high. Number two, if you have been caught at a later date after 3 or 4 year period of time, then the interest will start and penalty. So therefore, it becomes very difficult. One has to take a safest view. But of course, the doors are open that one can take an aggressive view and take the thing. So this is what about the rate of tax and the value of services, and this is one of the very challenging thing. Now, second, let's go to the second issue. Whenever you are buying a residential unit or a commercial unit, you will find first of all an agreement value in the agreement. And second one, you will find that after that various charges which is separately charged by the builder or developer under the name of the infrastructure or development charges or other service, mainly maintenance charges for 1 year or 2 year, advocate fees, drafting charges, installation charges, club or membership charges, like that various charges are charged by the customer, by the builder. So now the question has come up, how much tax has to be discharged on these other services which has been provided by the builder or developer to the prospective buyer? So one view would be, so here I have given you the analysis that this is the total amount charged. So one view would be that on 1 crore 40 lakhs rupees, the tax has to be discharged at the construction cost services. On 10 lakhs rupees, that is infrastructure development charges and 1 year maintenance, we have to consider it as a separate service, and 18% rate has to be levied. But the other school of thought is no. This charges which has been recovered by the builder or developer, that is in connection with the development of the construction only. And therefore, whatever is the, and therefore such kind of supply is known as a composite supply, and accordingly the rate of tax which is applicable to the main supply here is the construction service, that rate needs to be applied, and that rate is 5%. So what's your view? What would be the rate of tax? 18% or 5%? 18%. 5%. Okay, so chalo. So let's see that what would be the position. Now naturally one view would be that all these charges are collected during the course of construction service only. Suppose if I come separately and ask to the builder that please give me the membership fees in your project, can he give me? Obviously not. These fees are only for those buyers, prospective buyers, who are buying the residential unit or a commercial unit in that place. All the charges which has been recovered by the builder or developer is because the person has bought the residential unit. Otherwise he will not. So on the one side, we can very well say that it's a composite supply only, and it is in relation to the principal supply of construction service. However, different view would be could be possible. What different view? Let's see this. You know that before you go to the court of law, that is the High Court, there is one authority is there which is known as an advance authority ruling, which is known as AAR. So before you travel to the High Court, you have to go for the AAR and then appellate authority of advance ruling. So wherein it has been AR, it has been held that construction service and other services provided by the builders are not naturally bundled and are not supplied in conjunction with each other in the ordinary course of business with the main supply, right? These are only the mere facilities provided by the applicant to its customers for the very limited period, because for this facility is created, the customers have not been given any perpetual right. One more argument which has been forwarded, that on this price, the stamp duty is also not paid. Stamp duty is paid only on the agreement value and not on these other charges. And accordingly, the charges which has been collected for other services should not be covered within the definition of construction services, and hence not a composite supply, and 18% rate of tax is to be leviable. Now what would be the persuasive value of this AAR? This is applicable only to the person who has applied for it and not to applicable to all. Now contrary to this, if you take my personal view, I would say I am not agreeing with this, with due respect with the judgment of this AR in the matter of Puranic builders. Let us first take the case of this infrastructure development charges. What are these infrastructure development charges? These are the fees or charges which has to be payable by the builder to the municipalities, right? So under some statute, they are bound to pay these charges, and accordingly, so these charges are nothing but in relation to provision of the construction services, and accordingly, this is in respect, it can be considered as a composite supply. We cannot take it out. That is the first thing. Second is the 1 year maintenance. This 1 year maintenance, yes, of course, this cannot be charged over here. That is the thing. And in the next our issue is this 1 year maintenance. So let us keep aside this 1 year maintenance. But the overall ruling of this AAR that all the other facilities would be liable to charge at 18%, that is not the correct view. Now let's go to the maintenance charges. 1 year maintenance or 2 year maintenance which has been collected by the builder for maintaining and repairing the building till the conveyance of the property to the buyers, right? Whether they would be liable to GST or not. Yes, what's your view? Maintenance charges pe? Lagta hai? Acha. Chalo. Let's see what is this maintenance charges. Let's go to the RERAs. Let's go to section 11, which provides the functions and duties of the developer or promoter. Friends, I would like to say that whenever you are reading the GST law, one need not have to only read the GST law, one has to read the other law also, very, very important. Because from there the powers will come to know. Now, for all this real estate transaction, which is the mother act, MOFA, first of all, now MOFA has been replaced by RERA. So MOFA and RERA one needs to know, then and then only you would be able to come to the conclusion, probable conclusion, I would say. So now let's see the section 11 of the RERA Act, which says function and duties of developer and promoter. So what is the first? Subsection 4, subclause D says that the developer or promoter is responsible for providing and maintaining the essential services on reasonable charges till the taking over of the maintenance of the project by the association of allottees, that is the society or residential welfare association. That is, it is the duty of the builder or developer that till the conveyance takes place, he has to maintain the building, he has to pay the municipal taxes, he has to pay the land revenue tax, all the charges he has to need to pay till the conveyance taken place, and then he has to give it to the allottees, that is the society or a residential welfare association. So this is a statutory obligation which has been enforced upon the builder or developer. And whenever any statutory things are being enforced, you cannot say that there is a provision of supply of services. Where is the meaning of supply of service? GST would be applicable only if there is a supply of goods or supply of services or both. Law says like that. Can we say here that there is a supply of goods? Obvious reply is no. Can you say there is a supply of service? No, there is no service. These are the function which has been attached function which has to be provided and given to the society members, and therefore such statutory function should be out of the levy. Second thing, now let's come to the GST. If you go to Rule 31, which says that if any expenditure or cost is incurred by the supplier as a pure agent of the recipient of supply, then that should be excluded from the value of supply if all the following conditions are satisfied. That is known as a pure agent. That means आप अगर कोई construction service कर रहे हैं, and if you are incurring any expenditure or cost which are in the nature of pure agent, then that transaction would be reduced from the value of supply. Let's see what it tries to say. It says the supplier acts as a pure agent of the recipient of supply when he makes the payment to the third party on authorization by such recipient. That means the service provider should have an authorization from the recipient. Now, if we correlate with the builder and buyer agreement, so in the agreement, it must have mentioned that we are following the MOFA law or a RERA agreement. And we will take care of this. If such kind of clause is not there, then my request would be, please add that. But it is there, it must be there. Second, so there is a authorization given by the buyer to the service provider, that is a builder or developer, that you can provide me such kind of services. The payment made by the pure agent on behalf of the recipient of supply has been separately indicated in the invoice issued by the pure agent to the recipient of service. Whenever an invoice is issued, in that invoice is to specifically mention that this is for the pure agent. Third, the supplies procured by the pure agent from the third party as a pure agent of the recipient of supply are in addition to the service he supplies on his own account. That means, in addition to his own supply of service, he must have to procure additional service and give it to the prospective buyer. So these are the conditions which needs to be fulfilled. And of course, the three other pure agent is that he should does not use the such supply of goods or services and receives only actual amount. That means there should not be any profit markup. If all these conditions are fulfilled, then you are considered as a pure agent. Now let us again go back to this maintenance charges. Now as per the RERA, it is the duty of the builder and developer to maintain the building till it gives the actual possession. तो उसे उसका security charge भी भरना है, property tax भी भरना है, उसका electricity bill भी भरना है, right? And maintain it. Now when the society forms, तो उसे क्या करना पड़ेगा? What he will do? He will prepare all the accounts for 2 years and then give it to the committee. That yes, this is the money which we have contributed, 1 year or 2 years maintenance charges. These are the expenses which we have incurred, and do the audit and then give it back to the society. If there is any surplus, he will give it back. If there is any amount to be taken, he will get it back. Then in that case, he would be considered as a pure agent. Where is the hitch? It is covered within that, and accordingly, in my view, it should not be applicable if you are fulfilling all the conditions for the same. Though there is no direct pronouncement has came so far, but if you will see the go to the service tax law, wherein 2 judgments in Bombay High Court in Sri Krishna Chaitanya Enterprise and Mumbai Tribunal in Kumar Rathi case, it has been held that collection of maintenance charge does not attract the service tax. But this pronouncement was under the service tax, and the same analogy can be borrowed in the GST law also, and to the best of my view, it should not be applicable. Now let's come to the another tax liability. Tax to be paid under discharge by the builder under reverse charge mechanism. I'm sure everyone aware about what is reverse charge mechanism, so I will not reply. So go to it. There are 4 kinds of tax transaction under which the builder or developer has to discharge the tax liability under reverse charge. What are those? First, when he procures or buys the development right or a FSI for construction of a project, then in that respect he has to discharge the tax liability under reverse charge. When he buys the long-term lease of land and pays the salami or a premium, then in that respect he has to discharge the tax liability under reverse charge. Number 3, when he procures the goods or services from an unregistered dealer to a certain percentage, then he needs to discharge the tax liability under reverse charge mechanism. And when he procures the cement or capital goods from an unregistered person, then he has to discharge the tax liability under reverse charge mechanism. Now let us say under which these 4 heads, how the tax liability needs to be discharged. So first of all, let us try to understand what would be the value. Because the tax has to be discharged, तो आपको value पता होनी चाहिए. Let's see what is the value of transfer of development right. So let us first understand what would be the value of transfer of development right, including FSI. It says value of similar apartment charged by the promoter from the independent buyer nearest to the date on which TDR or FSI is transferred. So whenever the TDR transfer of development rights, transferred in favor of the developer, that is the date at which it has been, we have to consider, is there any transaction which has been carried out with the independent buyer, then that value of development right needs to be taken, and on that the tax rate has to be applied, that we will see in a couple of minutes. Now, how to determine the value of long-term lease? Now, what is long-term lease? Lease means more than 30 years. Then any upfront amount known as premium, salami, cost, price, development charges, or by any other name paid for acquiring the long-term lease needs to be considered to be a value of that development right, and on that the tax needs to be discharged. Now, let us understand what would be the rate of tax. Let's see what would be the rate of tax. For transfer of development right and long-term lease, the law says tax has to be payable to the extent which is attributable to the resident apartment which remains unbooked on the date of issuance of completion certificate or first occupation, whichever is earlier. So what kya batana chahta hai? It says that whenever that TDR or FSR is used for the construction of the residential project, then no tax needs to be payable. Then at the end, one has to determine that how much units are unsold, residential unit. That unsold units have to be taken into consideration, and on those unsold units, one has to discharge the tax liability. Same in respect of long-term lease also. That means if TDR or FSI is used for the commercial projects, then in that case, the tax has to be paid immediately and at the. Now, what would be the rate of tax? So, the law says 18% on the value of development right, TDR or FSIs, or 1 or 5% on the value of such unbooked apartment, whichever is lower. So, normally 1 or 5% ही आएगा. On that, what would be the level? We have to discharge the tax liability. Then now when it is to be paid? Last. Tax has to be paid on the date of issuance of completion certificate for the project where required by the competent authority or on its first occupation, whichever is earlier. That means ये liability को shift कर दिया है. My liabilities, that means payment of tax को shift कर दिया है. My liability starts as on the first day whenever I acquired it. But many of the builder and developer have suggested that if we pay it at an early date, then our cash flow would be affected, right? All those who are preferably in a residential unit construction. So like हमको problem होगा, so please allow us to pay it at a later date. Therefore, it has been said that okay, in such kind of development, right, you pay the tax at the when you receive the completion certificate. That means at the end, so that their cash flow liability would not be affected. Now let's see under the reverse charge mechanism how it works. GST law provides that the 80% of the value of input or input services which are used in the construction services have to be procured from a registered person. So 80% of the value of goods or services has to be procured from a registered person. That means 20% ka leverage diya, that can be obtained from an unregistered person. Now, very important thing, that what would happen to the exempted supplies? Now suppose builder has obtained the loan as a working capital from the outsiders. Then whether the whatever interest which has been paid, that would be considered from the individual borrower. That would be forming part of my total value of supply from unregistered person. The obvious reply should be no. But unfortunately, in the FAQ which has been issued on 14th May 2019, they have said that whenever you are anything, though it is an exempted supply, that would form part of my value from an unregistered supplier, and that has to be taken into consideration. Thank you. Which is a very challenging thing to determine, because that liability would be very more. So one has to be little bit careful in this. Now, while calculating the limit of 80%, following supplies will not be considered. That is grant of development rights, grant of long-term lease of land, FSI, electricity, high-speed diesel, motor spirit and natural gas. Now this is the tabulation I think where I will share with you so that it would be very easy because time is less, so I have to be rushed through that. Now let's go to the development of land belonging to others. That's the first slide we have said. Now when the land is belong to others, so as I have said earlier, the development of land could be with development with the landowner or cooperative housing society, therefore joint development agreement, or development with government project, that is SRA project. When you are doing the land development with cooperative housing society or a joint development, it could be of two ways. By way of area sharing with a landowner or by way of a revenue sharing. And when the development with the SRA project, area to be given free of charge to the existing members and developers are free area to be sold to the outsiders. Now let us see how this takes place, the area sharing and revenue sharing. So if you see the second side of it, it says that in this example, landowner share is 40% and developer share is 60%. So out of 100 flats, 40 flats will belong to landowners and 60 flats will belong to the developer. So this is known as an area sharing arrangement. In respect of revenue sharing arrangement, the whole 100 flats will be so has to be sold by the developer, and the revenue which flows from the 100 flats would be divided in the pre-agreed ratios. That meant the 60 and 40%. That is the revenue sharing. Now let's quickly see how the tax liability would be. So let us first try to understand joint development agreement under area sharing. Now under area sharing, let us first out try to say the landowner, whether landowner has to pay any tax or not. So in this, the landowner receives the consideration in the form of constructed area. Usko kya milta hai? Constructed area milta hai. So now how we will discharge the tax liability? So applicability of tax on development, right? So on the transfer to builder or developer, who will pay the tax? Naturally builder will pay. Landowner need not have to worry. He need not have to pay the tax. Then how it will, that tax has to be paid by the builder. Then applicability of the tax on the owner's share. Owner's का जो 40% share मिला, उसको क्या करेगा, किसको sell करेगा? To the prospective buyer. So what is his liability? Landowner is liable to pay GST on his sale of his share of under constructed area at the rate of 1% if it is a affordable area, or 5% if it is a residential area. Developer will charge GST on the construction services provided to the landowner. That means जो भी उसने free cost में दिया, he will charge to the landowner. So whatever tax he has been paid, that the landowner will get the input tax credit while discharging the output tax liability. So this is the landowner, उसको खाली whatever his area of sharing is there, only on that much he has to pay, discharge the tax liability. Now let's come to the taxation of the builders. Builders को क्या भरना है? So first, as I have told you, that first of all development right जब भी purchase करेगा तो under reverse charge mechanism he has to discharge the tax liability. Now value कैसे determine करना है? Value determine करना है whatever similar apartments has been sold to the independent buyer nearest to the date on which TDR is transferred. Rate of tax would be 18% of the development rate, or 1% or 5% on the value of unbooked apartment, whichever is lowest. On that value he has to discharge the tax liability under reverse charge mechanism. When he sells the flat, tax payable on the apartment allotted to the landowner, तो उसको forward charge में construction services में tax pay करना है. Whatever share area which he is selling under his possession, that would be sold on a normal circumstances, either 5% or 12%, and accordingly he has to discharge the tax liability. Mind it well here, if he is under a new scheme of taxation, he will not be eligible to take the input tax credit if he is selling the residential project. But if it's a commercial project, then he will be able to take the input tax credit for the same. Now, revenue sharing. This revenue sharing could be based on the total revenue or sale proceed, that is known as a top line, or it would be based on the actual net profit, that is the bottom line, or any other basis, or the combination of the above. Now in area sharing, what will happen? Everything will remain same, except in the area sharing, the land owner will not get the constructed area. So whatever is the sale consideration of whole 100 flats are there, which in the example I have said, that will go to the builder or developer, and the builder or developer will share the money to the landowner, so that there is no tax liability as far as the landowner is concerned in respect of revenue sharing. As far as the land sharing, in the area sharing of the builder and developer, the same tax liability would be there. In respect of purchase of development right, he has to discharge the tax liability under reverse charge mechanism. In respect of the area which has been sold, that is the 100% area or the 100 units which has been sold to the outsider, he has to levy the tax of 1% or 5% based on the affordable area or normal unit, and he has to discharge the tax liability. So this is the sharing joint development agreement or under the revenue sharing agreement. Now I think it's 7 o'clock, and let's have some open for the question answer session, because 15 minutes has been parted for that. Yeah, so any online queries there? Can anyone check? Or from the floor?
मेरा एक सवाल था।
हाँ जी, बोलिए।
मेरा जमीन पूरा मैं ओनर हूँ उसका।
आप ओनर है, ओके।
उस पर पहले से 30 टेनेंट हैं।
ओके।
दैट इज टेनेंट्स को मेरे को देना पड़ता है।
करेक्ट।
तो उनके साथ जो मैं एग्रीमेंट करूँगा परमानेंट अल्टरनेट या जो एरिया दूंगा,
राइट,
उसके ऊपर क्या टैक्स है?
तो आपको जो डेवलप, उसको अभी देखिए, पूरी जमीन तो लैंड आपकी है, वो आपके टेनेंट है, बराबर है, सो देयर इज नो डेवलपमेंट राइट,
राइट,
करेक्ट, सो वेयर इज द क्वेश्चन ऑफ पेमेंट ऑफ एनी टैक्स ऑन दैट एरिया? सो वॉट एवर यू आर पेइंग एज ए परमानेंट ऑल्टरनेट एकोमोडेशन, उसके ऊपर तो कोई टैक्स आएगा ही नहीं।
नहीं तो सम कंसल्टेंट सेज कैन नो दैट इज टैक्सेबल, you have to pay 5% on the market value.
But on which portion, sir?
That is जो area that is we are giving on excess of,
नहीं,
जैसे
देखिए,
मैं छोटा करता हूँ उसको।
हाँ।
अभी समझो 100 फुट उसके पास था पहले से, now I am providing 250, so that is they are saying that on 150 pay the tax.
On 150?
Yes, 150 pays at the
additional
area.
हाँ. Additional,
That
नहीं,
is
sir.
the free of cost we are giving.
Correct. नहीं. So I will just elaborate you. Now देखिए, आपको मैं ये एग्जाम्पल दिखा रहा हूँ। एक आप लैंड ओनर है, ज्वाइंट डेवलपर है और डेवलपर है। लैंड ओनर है यहाँ,
Right.
और ज्वाइंट है। भी लैंड ओनर मीन्स ही इज द हैविंग द लैंड। नाउ इन योर केस देयर आर टेनेंट्स, सो
Right.
पूरी लैंड किसकी है? आप ही की है,
Right.
और उसको आप डेवलप करना चाहते हैं,
Right.
बराबर है। तो आपने क्या कहा कि चलो जो मैं डेवलपमेंट राइट इसमें कुछ आएगा नहीं। नाउ इन ल्यू ऑफ दे आर सरेंडरिंग देयर टेनेंसी राइट टू यू, बिकॉज दे हैव टू सरेंडर द टेनेंसी राइट।
Right.
आपको टेनेंसी राइट सरेंडर करेंगे। नाउ इन ल्यू ऑफ दैट यू विल गिव देम कंस्ट्रक्टेड फ्लैट्स ऑन ओनरशिप बेसिस से 40%, 40 फ्लैट्स आपने दे दिए। देन ऑन दैट 40% ऑफ द 40 फ्लैट्स whatever is the construction cost, उसमें आपको करना पड़ेगा।
That is on construction cost.
On construction, yeah. Because you are providing them a construction services.
But construction cut off which area?
हाँ जी,
Which area?
40% एरिया आप देंगे ना। सपोज आपका टोटल 10,000 स्क्वायर फीट का एरिया का आप कंस्ट्रक्शन किया, उसमें से 40% आप एग्जिस्टिंग टेनेंट्स है,
हाँ.
उनको दे रहे हैं,
But
और कंसिडर इट इज अ 40,000 स्क्वायर फीट।
Okay.
So on 40,000 square feet, whatever would be your construction cost, on that you have to discharge the tax liability.
That is construction cost.
Only
How will
construction
calculate-
cost.
But how will calculate the construction cost?
सर वो तो आपके पास ही रहेगा ना।
नहीं,
जो
how?
2,000 रुपया 3,000 रुपया जो कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉस्ट आएगी, उसको तो आपके पास रहेगी ना।
But that the construction cost will come to at the end of project.
हाँ,
Then
लेकिन
the liability when will arise?
सर जो भी आप मुझे आप बताए, टेनेंसी राइट कभी सरेंडर करेगा?
Tenancy right that is prior to starting the project.
नहीं सर, टेनेंसी राइट आपके एंड में, जब भी आप उसको पोजीशन देंगे तभी वो टेनेंसी राइट सरेंडर करेगा, वहां तक वो नहीं करेगा 100%। अदरवाइज सर क्या होगा, प्रैक्टिकली सोचिए, अगर मैं आपका टेनेंट हूं, मैंने टेनेंसी राइट सरेंडर कर दिया, तो मुझे क्या मिलेगा? आपने तो प्रॉमिस दिया है,
Yes.
बस उतना ही मुझे मेरे पास रहेगा। लेकिन अगर मैं टेनेंसी राइट एट द एंड व्हेन यू आर गिविंग मी द पोजीशन ऑफ द फ्लैट, इफ एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम इफ आई सरेंडर, तो मुझे प्रॉमिस के साथ वैल्यू जगह भी मिलेगी।
So then construction cost पे फिर वापस वही तो उनको ऑफिसर्स को
हाँ जी,
प्रॉब्लम होएगा। जो कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉस्ट आप कह रहे हो,
हाँ।
उसका जितने एरिया पे है उस पे मेरे को जीएसटी भरना है,
करेक्ट,
तो जीएसटी किस रेट से भरेंगे उस पे?
जो 5%
5%,
रेसिडेंशियल
5%,
5%।
तो जो एरिया पे जो कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉस्ट में मैं भर रहा हूँ, तो कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉस्ट के लिए तो ऑलवेज डिस्प्यूट रहेगा।
क्यों डिस्प्यूट रहेगा सर?
ठीक है, वो मानना चाहिए ना उसको, बोले दैट इज
सर आपके पास रिकॉर्ड तो रहेगा ही ना।
हाँ, यस,
बस तो फिर क्या है?
ओके।
तो 40,000 स्क्वायर फीट इंटू से 3,500 रुपीज या 4,000 कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉस्ट रहेगी, मल्टीप्लाई बाय 5%।
सो मतलब दैट इज वी हैव टू पे।
हाँ हाँ हाँ, वो तो फिर
So Ashit bhai, that would be construction contract, correct?
यस यस यस।
Then will it be subject to 5% or 18%?
हाँ, sorry, correct. I tend to correct it. 18%, sorry, because it's not a construction service.
there is no
So,
land value.
yeah, there is no land values included. Yes, yes. Thank you for the correction. It should
So
be
that will be 18%.
18%, yeah, yeah.
सोसाइटी
हाँ, अभी सोसाइटी पे आते हैं, हाँ, then the things would be different.
सोसाइटी
तो सोसाइटी के ऊपर जो ट्रांसफर ऑफ डेवलपमेंट राइट है, उसके ऊपर टैक्स भरना है, वो भी बिल्डर और डेवलपर को ही भरना है। जैसे मैंने यहां आपको बताया, यहां वैल्यू ऑफ डेवलपमेंट राइट, यहां आप देखेंगे तो ऑन वैल्यू ऑफ डेवलपमेंट राइट द बिल्डर और डेवलपर हैज टू पे द टैक्स नॉट बाय द सोसाइटी, नॉट टू द सोसाइटी, वो एट द एंड में भरेंगे। सो नाउ अगेन आई विल गिव यू एन एग्जांपल। सपोज आपकी सोसाइटी है जिसमें 100 फ्लैट्स है, एग्जिस्टिंग मेंबर्स, उसमें 400 मेंबर्स आ जाते हैं, नए कंस्ट्रक्शन करेंगे तो आपको 100 फ्लैट्स फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट देना है। अभी हम एडिशनल एरिया नहीं लेते हैं, ठीक है, 100 फ्लैट्स आपने दे दिए। सो ऑन नाउ व्हाट इज द ट्रांसफर ऑफ डेवलपमेंट राइट? सो ट्रांसफर ऑफ डेवलपमेंट राइट वुड बी, आपने जो फर्स्ट फ्लैट बाहर वाले को बेचा है, जब भी आपका डेवलपमेंट ट्रांसफर हुआ, ऑन दैट रेट यू हैव टू डिस्चार्ज द टैक्स लायबिलिटी।
ऑन अदर बायर ना, व्हाट इज द एग्जिस्टिंग जो बायर है उन पे
उसकी
क्या?
वैल्यू की मैं बात कर रहा हूं, वैल्यू। सपोज अश्विन भाई को एक फ्लैट बेचा है, आप वही सोसाइटी के मेंबर्स है, उनको सपोज 10,000 रुपए में फ्लैट बेचा है पर स्क्वायर फीट, तो जो वैल्यू ऑफ डेवलपमेंट राइट रहेगी वो 10,000 रुपीज मल्टीप्लाई बाय द एरिया which has been given, that would be considered as development right, and on that 1% or 5% needs to be discharged.
That is
Before
the-
I go to the next question, sir, there is an announcement from the organizers, CREDAI-MCHI and RERA Practicing Welfare Association is organizing a knowledge series, a physical knowledge series on 22nd June. That is in coming days, very, very burning topic. That is on stalled real estate project. Those projects which are for whatever reason have actually stalled, and the panel discussion, I'll just tell you that it is a very, very learned faculties and the leaders of the real estate industry is going to participate in the panel discussion. We will be having Shri Ajay Mehta, who is Chairman Maharera, Dr. Vijay Sadbir Singh, the member of Maharera. Then we are having Parimal Shroff, very senior advocate and solicitor. We are having the President CREDAI-MCHI, Mr. Boman Irani. We are also having architect Milind Changani and Shri Rohit Gupta, who is an expert in the stress project funding. I believe that it is a very interactive session. In the evening, 5 o'clock at KC College, Churchgate. It is a physical presentations and the panel discussion, where you will be also allowed to participate by sending a question to the panelists in the this. And mind you, it is not a live session on YouTube or anywhere else. You have to come physically if at all you are interested. So may I have other questions, please? Yes. Yeah, it will be on the screen. We are going to show. Yes, it is a curtain raiser.
Yeah. On land value.
Land which I have purchased it.
Yeah.
Land which I have purchased it. Say land I have purchased before 5 years, That time my rate was low, and now after 5 years I am developing the property. So can I take land value as equal to stamp duty valuation, whatever ready reckoner rate, which may be higher than the whatever I have acquired land? That is one question. And second is relating to redevelopment.
Okay.
If redevelopment project is there, then for land cost I will be paying, say, displacement compensation or rent or corpus to society, corpus to tenants. So whether that all clubbed together can be considered as a land value.
Okay. Right. Chalo, now coming to your first question about the value of land. Now the value of land, if we see the valuation rules, again, let's go to that. So how to determine the value? It says value of such supply shall be equivalent to the total amount charged for such supply, less the value of transfer of land or undivided share of land, as the case may be, and the value of such transfer of land or share of undivided share of land, is the case may be, shall be deemed to be 1/3 value. So now your question is whether can I put my cost equivalent to my value of land, which has been as of today, which I have transferred into my project. Sir, very honestly, it would be too difficult to, or rather I would say it would be too aggressive view. The law provides that whatever is the actual cost, that you have to reduce, and on that you have to pay the tax. Now on that, if you are trying to artificially put some value, which is not incurred by you, I think no court will give you that benefit. So it would be too difficult proposition to say that I will put the current value. Otherwise, sir, क्या हो जाएगा? सब लोग बोलेंगे मेरा cost project complete हुआ 5 साल के बाद मैं तभी की land की value लूँगा. So it would be too difficult or challenging.
My question was, I am paying premiums to the MCC. So that is the land cost?
That is a land cost. No, that of course not. That's not a land cost, sir. That's not a land cost. That you are paying to them just to regularize that. See, then
For getting the FSAs.
that means, correct. So definitely, yes. Coming to that. So cost of land, what is the cost of land? So if we take the definition of land, right, then it says any addition benefit which is accruing to the land. So definitely we can take it. So cost of land plus my TDR value or FSI value, but not the charges which you are paying. This is to the best of my knowledge. Now coming to your second question. Development right has been acquired by the builder or developer from the society. So at that point of time, what would be the value of development right? So they have very clearly said that development right would be the value at which the transfer of flat has been made to the independent buyer. So that will include the total market value. Right? So then there is no separate question that मैंने जो इतना पैसा दिया, corpus fund दिया, मैंने rent दिया, permanent alter access दिया, transport charges, that all will take into consideration in that value. All these problems were there prior to 1/4/2019. तभी ये सारी आपकी बात बराबर है, कैसे गिने, ready reckoner value गिनो, कौन सी value गिनो. But after 2019, this problem has been sold. Now they very categorically said that value which is the similar value of flat sold to the independent buyer. So ये कोई मायना नहीं रखेगा सर. कौन का? हाँ, resident, correct. कम.
Yes, sir. Please tell.
एक मिनट, commercial project में क्या है? करेंगे ना सर. बेसिकली लैंड की वैल्यू पूरे कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में, तो लैंड की वैल्यू कमर्शियल में भी आएगी, रेसिडेंशियल में भी आएगी, तो वो जाएगी. आपको खाली ध्यान रखना है कि कोई आप यूजेज चार्जेस नहीं देते हैं, दैट कैन नॉट बी कंसिडर्ड एज ए लैंड वैल्यू. आप डेवलपमेंट राइट, आई कैन अग्री दैट, बट अदर देन दैट आई डोंट थिंक एनीथिंग. Then it would be correct. If it is in relation to the land, then definitely yes. हाँ जी.
So I have a very specific question in continuation to what the gentleman asked earlier. So this is a project which is post 2019. It has less than 15% of commercial.
Okay.
So it's a residential real estate project.
RREP.
Starting, say for example, in 2022.
Correct.
I have 100 tenants at the site. I am the owner and the developer. I have 100 tenants. They are currently occupying, say, 100 square feet each. That's about whatever square feet. As per rule, I'm supposed to give them minimum 400 square feet each. I'm bearing the construction cost. I'm paying GST on the construction cost also of raw materials and everything. So what you mentioned is that if it's a real estate, if it's a residential real estate project, I am giving free of cost as per rule. Like you mentioned earlier, it's a promoter's responsibility to construct and give them minimum 400 square feet each to each residential tenant. I'm doing that and I'm giving that free of cost, and I'm bearing the GST on the raw materials which goes into constructing that 400 square feet, 100
Correct.
units. You mentioned that GST at the rate of 18% will be applicable on the construction cost of those 100 units will be applicable. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, correct, sir. Because you are providing them a construction services.
Yes.
Right? You will not fall within the definition which has been provided under the GST law under Schedule 2, subclause B, 5B, which says that it is in respect of where the land is also included. Therefore, you are purely a labor contractor, where you are providing that services to the tenants to construct that, and in lieu of that, they will surrender their tenancy right to you.
No, I'm talking in the case of owner is developing it himself.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
So owner is constructing the thing for the tenant, and in lieu of which, so if you are constructing something for the outsiders, right, then what in the normal principle you will do? Your construction cost or uske upar you will levy the GST.
At 5%.
No, sir, 18%, because this is a labor contract, sir, not 5%. So there is a change in the definition. Therefore, now if you are selling it to the other person, he will give you cash. But in here, instead of giving cash, he will give you the surrender of the tenancy right.
So if I sell a flat in the same project to an outsider,
Then 5% would be there, because you are covering that entry 5B of the Schedule 2.
so 5%
To the outsider.
to the outsider at market value,
Correct.
and 18% to the tenant
at the
at the
construction.
construction cost, and that
Yes.
construction cost will also include the GST paid for that raw materials.
Yeah, but that you will get the input tax credit, no? There. For that component,
For that component.
you will be able to claim the
For the
input
rehab
tax.
component, you're
Yeah.
saying you get input
Correct,
tax
exactly.
credit?
Yes. Because you are not falling under that entry. So if in a construction service, there are 8 entries are there. 8 entries, different kinds of. So you are not falling, if you are falling under 18% category, then you are eligible for the input tax credit. If you are falling under that 5% rate, then input tax credit
So in
is
one
not.
project, you can have two different
Of course,
components
of
of
course.
GST.
Yeah.
For the rehab separately and for the sale separately.
Of course.
Even though it's a composite building.
Composite building, yeah.
It's one single building where the lower floors are for
You have
tenants
to
and-
do that, no? You have to do that. You don't have choice.
Sir, what is the valuation mechanism in the time of supply when we entering PAA, Permanent Alternate Accommodation Agreement, with the existing member, when we builder go for the redevelopment?
So here the time of supply, again, time of supply would be the transfer of development right. So when the development agreement has been entered, at that point of time there is a transfer of development right. But the liability to pay tax on that development right has been postponed to the date when you have received the occupation certificate or a completion certificate.
Okay.
That means at the end of the project,
At the time of receipt of the completion certificate.
completion certificate.
And what is the valuation mechanism?
Valuation mechanism, the value which is there at that point of time, which you have sold. Now say for example, you have entered into a development agreement as of today, correct? Now you have to see that what is the similar value of apartment which have been sold to the independent buyer as of today, right? As of today, suppose at 25,000 rate, I have sold it to the independent buyer. So 25,000 rate multiply by the number square feet. That would be the value, and on that the tax liability has to be there. Then you have to when you have to discharge the tax liability at the end when you are receiving the certificate OC.
For example, suppose the existing member, the area is the 400 square feet and developer has agreed, I will give the 20% extra. So I will give the 480 in the new building, right? When I entering the development agreement, I already pay the taxes at the registration of the development agreement. So now my question is what about the 80 square feet which I am giving over and above the 400 square feet? What is the valuation mechanism for that 80
सर
square feet?
80 का आपको वैल्यूएशन करना ही नहीं है, मैंने आपको क्या बताया. सपोज मैंने अश्विन भाई को 25,000, इज एन इंडिपेंडेंट बायर एंड यू आर एन एग्जिस्टिंग यूनिट होल्डर. इनको मैंने 25,000 रुपीज में मैंने फ्लैट बेचा है. तो नाउ द वैल्यू वुड बी 25,000 मल्टीप्लाई बाय 480 स्क्वायर फीट.
नहीं सर, मैंने 400 में तो जब डीए रजिस्टर किया था उसमें ऑलरेडी स्टैम्प ड्यूटी दे दिया, तो डबल कॉस्ट हो जाएगा डेवलपर को तो ना.
सर दैट इज अंडर अ डिफरेंट लॉ. दिस यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट जीएसटी, राइट? सो जीएसटी में वैल्यूएशन मैकेनिज्म इसी हिसाब से दिया है. फिर अंडर सम अदर लॉ इफ यू आर पेइंग एनीथिंग देन दैट शुड नॉट बी टेकन इनटू कंसीडरेशन ना. आप बोलेंगे मैंने 400 पे इनकम टैक्स भरा है तो मैं यहाँ जीएसटी क्यों भरूं? That cannot be the question. So only on 480 square feet multiply by 25,000 rupees, उसके ऊपर जो 1% और 5% आपका आ जाएगा. That you have to pay at the end.
Okay.
Ashit bhai, will it make any difference if it is a self redevelopment by the society and member? Because in the eye of law, society is an independent person and the members are independent, whether it's a developer and member relationship or society or member relationship.
So very interesting. Nowadays this concept of self redevelopment has come into the picture because of various problems which are going on. Now in this self redevelopment, what society will do? Society will itself will appoint one person to construct or redevelop the project. So वहाँ कोई development right आएगा ही नहीं, so कोई GST का problem नहीं है. Now when the society उनका construct हो गया, तो at that point of time they will give it to their existing members without any charge, तो उनको मिल गया. Whatever additional area which has been sold by the society, either to the existing member or to the new member, उसके ऊपर उसको GST भरना है 5% के हिसाब से.
मेरा एक सवाल था, जो कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉस्ट पर मैं 18% भर रहा हूँ.
1 minute. So here Ashit bhai, the concept of mutuality will not come?
Sir, why mutuality? Mutuality will be with the same member. Here the society is when selling it to the outsider. Why?
My question is allotment of flat. Say for example, there is no unit to be sold. Society is self redevelopment by way of a contribution.
Okay.
So here every member is getting say 30% area extra. So now will it make any difference?
So in the GST law, there is no concept of mutuality is there, because members and society per se are a different member, and that's why this question of charging GST will come. Otherwise, तो कुछ मतलब ही नहीं था, right? Whenever between club or association क्या हो रहा है? Yes, members and the society are a distinct person. Now तो they have made the amendment retrospectively from 1st day of June 2017. So that concept of mutuality will not be there, and you have to pay the tax. So one thing is very much sure. Tax is inevitable. One has to pay it. Don't plan it. If you will plan it, you have to pay very heavily. Nowadays, the concept is like.
We'll
that.
have the last questions because we have to conclude. Please, and sir is here, so you can always ask him the question. Yes.
18% मैंने
Yeah.
18% जो लिया मैं 18% कॉस्ट जो भरा GST भरा उस पर मैं आईटीसी प्रपोजल क्लेम कर सकता हूँ.
कर सकते हैं ना, मैंने उनको बताया ना कि
तो मेरे को आई हैव टू रिटेन
you have to आईटीसी आप ले पाएंगे ना. जो भी आपने गुड्स और सर्विसेज, जो सपोज आपने 40% आपका जो टेनेंट्स के प्रॉपर्टी पे आपने दिया है, उसमें जो भी आपने इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट यूटिलाइज की है, गुड्स लिया रहेगा, सर्विसेज, तो उसकी इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट आपको जरूर मिलेगी. उतना ही, हाँ उतने का ही, हाँ. बाकी का नहीं मिलेगा, विच इज एट्रीब्यूटेबल टू 40%. बराबर. Yeah, you can go. Yeah. So with this, I think I have concluded my talk on this GST issues. I am thankful again to the
As a token of love and affection, we would like to felicitate sir, and I would request Dr. Harshul Savlaji and our president Shri Ashwin Bhai Shah, Nilesh Bhai, Mr. Anit, Aditya, Mr. Satish. Those who are still online, you can put your question in the chat box. It will come to us. And on for 22nd also, it is mandatory to register it. So please, for the security reason, you please register yourself for 22nd. That is our stall project. So that is also, we have put a link in the chat box over here in the YouTube channel, or you can, of course, you can call us anytime. You need to be registered before you coming it. I would request Dr. Harshul Salvala to propose the vote of thanks.
Sir, before that, I would like to put one caveat. GST law is a dynamic law. It changes every day, every night. Therefore, whatever views which has been presented today may not be the same view as tomorrow. So one has to be very much careful, update yourself and then only do that. Though all efforts has been made that the law which has been, as of today, has been given the correct thing. But since it is dynamic, views are different, even courts are changing their view. So I am a very small person. So thank you very much, sir, for the listening.
Thank you. I would really appreciate, everyone's support in this particular initiative, especially the secretariat at CREDAI-MCHI led by Shri Keval and supported by Satish and Harish. I would especially thank our speaker for being so patient on all the questions. Really appreciate this because it's a new law. There are so many complexities and the variety of questions, right from self-redevelopment to 33(7) to plotted lands. The variety is so huge, and to cover it all is really commendable. And lastly, special thanks to RPWA, President, Secretary, all the office bearers who are there in full strength for really curating amazing and relevant content. And finally, looking forward to seeing all of you all on the 22nd on the interesting issue of stalled projects revival, a roadmap and a solution-based panel, which is multi-stakeholder oriented. And special thanks to all the 250 plus digital viewers who have joined us on YouTube for making this program a grand success. Thank you. Good evening, and we can have interaction. Yeah, the recording as well as the email ID, coordinates, etc. will be made available, as well as the presentations, and also the speaker is available for interaction. But please note the 22nd event is only physical. There is not going to be a digital and entry is purely registration based and on a first come, first entry basis. Thank you.
एक खाली सवाल था रेजिडेंशियल प्रोजेक्ट में समझे आधा अफोर्डेबल